Welcome to the Society Pod, a podcast for entrepreneurs, marketers, and leaders. Here's your host, Jessica Yarmy.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Society Pod. My guest today is a boutique fitness founder. She's an advisor, an investor, a brand builder, definitely a perfectionist, an entrepreneur, a master connector, and a co-pilot for fitness industry founders. Welcome to the show, Debra Strougo.
Thank you, Jessica. It is such a pleasure to be here with you on this podcast. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you were one of the first people that I knew I needed to schedule because you're doing a lot of work in the fitness industry right now. You kind of refer to it as like co-piloting versus consulting. Like, why the word co-pilot?
I think because a consultant kind of tells you what to do. Sometimes a consultant has a good rap. Sometimes it has a dirty word. As a co-pilot, I feel like it just aligns more with my nature as an entrepreneur. In coming in, figure out kind of like what needs to get done. We don't necessarily know all the answers. So we're going to like roll up our sleeves, like fly the plane together, patch in, patch out. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm so heavily involved in the business. I usually get to know the business enough to kind of like tee in and tee out in areas that the business needs support when they can't really hire a full-time person here, a full-time person there.
In your career, you've had founder moments, like where you've started at location one, and then you've had like exit moments where you've sold your brand. What is your ideal client right now that you co-pilot with? Are you leaning toward startup phase, or are you leaning toward exit phase, or are you kind of dabbling in both?
This is a wonderful question. I come from this whole thing as a passionate fitness person with some really good, skills and experience that I've learned along the way. My ideal is actually aligning with people who are passionate, want to go, and recognize that they can't necessarily do it alone. They're gonna own their role. They're gonna own their client base. They're gonna own everything that brought them here in the first place. And usually it's pretty much there, like it's 80% there, but maybe it's not crystallized into a deck or, being shared in a routine sort of structured way with the rest of the people in the business. But they're kind of at a stage where they know that they're going to need more support to keep going wherever that is. And to answer your question, sometimes that happens at one location. It's been a robust business for a chunk of time. They don't know, is the right model licensing? Should they franchise? Should they have more locations or not? And sometimes somebody has 25 locations already and they can't figure out how to show up for a franchise summit and make their franchisees happy. Lately, there's a couple of Australian brands that have come in. They all seem to, find me and need to figure out how to enter the US market with differentiation. And so it doesn't really matter the stage because I really love all of the stages, but usually it's somebody that's like serious about playing the long game.
One of the things that I find myself saying a lot, and it kind of sounds like this is how you're playing your game too, is like it's the who, it's not the what. Do you feel like that connects to what you're describing?
I think you and I would agree as brand builders and as marketers, it's always the who and then the what, right? So if you can align with people that have a similar view, vantage point, interest, value set, even if it's different from my own, if you could explain what it is, I can work with you within it, right? That's like audience generation or demographic makeup. But yeah, it's always the who before it is the what.
I know one of the things you say is the me, we, go kind of structure. Talk me through that structure because I'm not as familiar with that model.
I'm glad you brought it up because that's exactly what I was thinking a moment ago when you asked that question. The me, we, go structure is something that came up during an event that I was at. I was so lucky to listen to a keynote speaker at an event with the Adidas team and the Les Mills team. And the man who, I give all the credit to, who kind of created this structure, his name is Simon Curran. He's from New Zealand, and he just shared in sports and in athletic pursuit, an athletic team will only go once the athlete shows up as strong as they possibly can. And then we all are, are aligned with what we're supposed to do on the field or in our performance. And then that's when the momentum comes from those three things happening. And that too many people try to create momentum without fixing that alignment, which is kind of essentially the we, and then questioning, like, am I having my best day today? And when he spoke about that, I felt so aligned with everything he was saying. And I realized that we had really built Row House in the exact same framework. We just hadn't called it Me We Go, but it was you against you. So using actual experience, it was like, I'm going to row on my monitor and I'm going to see my monitor. But the rest of everybody is not going to see the monitor. We're aligned with the group cumulative score. So if I'm rowing right now and I've rowed 50 meters, let's say, and together we're trying to get 200,000 meters, I am in it. Like, I know my role is to give the group as many meters as I possibly can. And then together we can go. We can all get our strong cadence moving. We can all feel the vibe. We can all stay in sync. That's our job. But I'm going to show up, me in my best, feel part of that group because I know the aligned goal. And then together we can strive to go way past 200,000 if we're doing it really well and in sync. And that's the power of a team. And so we also coined that whole idea into everybody has a purpose and pulled together. And that was the entire culture of the creation of the Row House brand. And so when I heard Simon Curran's message, and then I thought about it, I was like, okay, wait a second, this is completely aligned. I went up to him and I'm like, I'm just going to start to plagiarize it. And he was like, plagiarize away, you know? And I was like, okay, fine. So I want to give him all the credit for putting it together, but I do think that I've just inherently always had experiences that ladder up exactly to that outside of the worlds of sport, which he was really focusing on sport and high performance teams. But even in corporate experience, when I was working at a publishing, it was like, I'm going to show up today from a business standpoint with my goals and objectives. They're going to ladder into my group or division's goals and objectives, and that's what builds the company, right? So it's hugely important in everything, like in your day-to-day daily life, that, you know, for my family, I show up healthy, well-rested, nourished. My health is in check. My mind is in check. We're not going crazy on things. And that's how our family can function together. And we could be the best family we can be, but also in all brands building. Your brand does not have to look anything like Row House, right? It could be a totally different vibe. Our culture was a certain way. It was very camaraderie driven. Whatever it is, if you're not aligned, knowing who each person or what each person brings to the table, and then how we as a group bring it together, then the business is not going to succeed. It's not going to travel because there will be too much breakdown along the way. So that's really the framework.
So you obviously have a front row seat to the fitness industry. Are there brands right now in the fitness industry that you think exemplify the Me We Go, and you're really looking to, or you're watching to see how they make their next moves?
Wonderful question. I'm watching so many brands. And if you're an audience listener and you think I should be watching your brands or whatever, I'm doing it on LinkedIn. Tag me in a post, DM me. I know, Jessica, you're super active too, because I love watching brands. I will say that some of the brands that I've gotten involved in the biggest ways are doing a lot of that really well. There's a million brands that I'm involved in that you don't really like know it or see it on LinkedIn. But I mean, you're a reformer. When Ben and Emma, the founders, had approached, I was like, you guys have a very, very strong sense of your brands. You have a very, very strong sense of who is in your community, what the right partner looks like, how to achieve that. And this is like a beautiful thing. So I'm going to help you bridge some gaps in, partnerships or what have you, or biz dev on, some B2B accounts, like, because you're going to tell me exactly how to be successful here because of exactly what you've built. And it's so aligned across the way. So, I saw that there earlier in the days when I had joined Pvolve. It was a little broken. The audience was female forward, but who the actual user was a little undefined. They've made leaps and bounds moving forward on that. Generally, I do think there's a lot of really strong brands out there, and those are the ones that it's just so fun for people to get involved. You see it in the job descriptions, because once you're involved, you know how to be successful and how to keep moving it forward. And if the brand doesn't feel right for you, you should just go find one that does. I'm watching a lot. I always like to watch more.
You definitely have the critical eye when it comes to the fitness space, but then also the critical recommendations on how to be successful in the fitness space. So if you and I were to just like come in contact at an event and I was like, hey, Debra, what does it take to be successful in the fitness space? Or what does it take to build a successful brand in the fitness space? What's your high level recommendations you give to people?
To your point, definitely know your community, know your user. The modality is like a piece of it, but you have to form that emotional connection. So it goes back to defining your values. What does this brand need to be? What does this brand feel like and sounds like? And where does it show up? And Jessica, you and I have talked about marketing calendar. And so certainly planning where you prospect to find those people and where you retain your people because they're so happy you're a part of these things in 2026. They're going to bring friends and friends are going to come. I'm curious really about your marketing calendar design, which I know you recently posted on LinkedIn. Having met you back in the Club Pilates days, I probably learned about your marketing calendar back then. When I do mine, it's very much about what's relevant day and date stuff like Valentine's Day. But just because it's Valentine's Day, is that something that we celebrate or is it not something that we celebrate as a brand, and why? What do we talk to it like? Are there special moments over the course of time that we need to pre-plan for, to show up for in a really big way because they mean a lot to our customer base? For example, any of the health-oriented type of months and things like that. I think for a brand to be successful, it really needs to know its audience, and it really needs to think forward about how to socialize back and storytell about that audience to generate more, but really how to show up in front of that audience. Of course, it goes without saying the sales ops and the programming and all of that to matching those customer needs. And I do think there's a lot of brands that have just said like, well, they do it that way, they do it that way, and they do it that way. And so we're going to apply that playbook. And I encourage all founders to really think through, how can you monetize your user? How can you monetize your experience? How can you monetize your community? What are they willing to pay? When are they willing to pay? How can you extend their lifetime? And that's something that really only comes to play if you create it in the fabric of your brands. And I think that's, though, ultimately what helps things really stick. Looking at the competitive set, but owning, your true core essence as priority to looking at all of the competition and all of how everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, I think like where you're talking about know your audience, know your brand, the third part of that's so critical that I think a lot of people just like kind of think magically happens is know your worth, like know your value. And to your point, you can't just look down the road and say, well, Deb's Yoga is doing $20 classes, so I need to match her $20 price. I mean, that goes back to everything that the big box fitness industry went through with Planet coming in and going $10. It kind of sent this ripple through the big box space of like, oh, now we need to chase $10. Versus know your audience, know your brand, and then know your value, and know like you don't have to chase. If you're solid on those three things, you don't have to chase those kind of discounts promotionally. You can really sit in like your value, and you can structure your calendar around adding value to membership offers instead of constant discounts.
100%. Otherwise, it's just a race to the bottom, watering down who you are. And that brings up, at one point when I kind of stepped back in to help on some things Row House related, was looking at the ads that were going out into the market, and they were very disparate all over the place. I said, where's the briefing document? Like, where's the tree trunk here? Because it doesn't feel aligned with the community, the brands necessarily. And so I think it goes back to that. Like, you really need to always brief absolutely everybody in the ecosystem on exactly what you said. Like, what's the value? What's the brand's promise? Like, the value proposition, the brand's promise, who we're trying to target, all of that is what is brought into that. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to lead with that message. And instead, you're going to chase the pricing tactics sometimes because you haven't created enough value when you've asked for the money. It still goes back to, you have to understand customer mindset. People will spend on things that they value. And as an industry, We really, really always need to be thinking that way. And I've encouraged boutique for a really long time to find ancillary revenue and places like, we own this customer, we've built trust. Are you layering in wellness? Are you layering in a retail package, bundling in something else? But really be thoughtful about who the user is, how they'll, fork over money for something versus, are you trying to layer in something? They'll go get it somewhere else. It doesn't make sense.
If you're only doing class packs, or if you're only catering to like a class pass audience of like, this person's going to come in one time a month and then they're going to jump to the next studio, you're really kind of missing not just all that, the ancillary kind of pieces that you're talking about revenue wise, but you're missing the opportunity to like put someone in that seat who is your core customer, who's going to come in 4 to 6 times a week. Instead of really building your marketing around an edge consumer, building your brand around an edge consumer, like you have to build all the things to cater to the core. And going back to what you said, to build from your core, you have to know what your core is. But then once you've defined it, then it's like, okay, then we need to target those people. We need to put a class schedule together to cater to those people. We need to market to those people. And then it's almost okay to exclude some people who aren't in that core. Like you have to be okay with alienating some people who aren't your main person.
100%. It's like anything in life. Like if it doesn't serve you, it's okay. And those are things I think founders are dealing with all the time too, is the pressure to be like this, or the pressure to, hear that noise or the negative Yelp review. Do you pay attention or do you not pay attention? Because the feedback is important. You always want to keep your head to the ground or your finger on the pulse. But if the feedback isn't against what you're trying to build, then it's okay to not serve the feedback or not solve that concern and to attract more of the people you're looking to attract, as long as you're building a reasonable business and financially you can build up to the numbers that are going to serve your P&L. So I think that's a huge part of this too. There are many marketers out there that aren't really, they're ROI or they're results driven, so they're oriented that way. But you do need to be operator minded to see some of this whole client lifecycle stuff through.
It's true. And I think if we think about something like ClassPass, you can look at it in a vacuum, or you could look at their pitch deck and you can go, oh yeah, sure. Like I would take an extra 5 people in my classes every week, or, however they kind of pitch it. But you have to kind of like zoom out and not just have your operator hat on, but you also need to have your brand hat on. You have to have your marketer hat on to say like, okay, does this holistically make sense for us? Or are we going to sink this ship that we just worked so hard to get afloat?
I think it's a great point, Jessica. I also think ClassPass is a marketing channel. It has always been a thing, right? You should be spending on marketing. And there was a day when no one wanted to spend on marketing. And ClassPass was a solution that helps you figure out what a marketing channel looked like, a digital, theoretically, marketing channel, if you want to call it that. But that's before a lot of people were spending on digital ads. And we similarly at EVF back in the day, when in New York City, Eric and I had built a strength and conditioning gym, we had CrossFit as our marketing channel. And because we were on the CrossFit affiliate map, and that was a huge marketing channel. Listen, it goes back to like, as passionate fitness founder operators, you're trying to figure out how to build a business. A lot of times I do feel like the inherent essence of what ClassPass was meant to be as a marketing channel really was a beautiful thing. Yes, it's gotten misused and all of these types of things. And like a ClassPass user, I've seen many businesses and really have strategies around the ClassPass user to think of it as a marketing channel or a remnant inventory channel, or create a strategy around it. I don't think is a terrible thing personally.
So if you go back to your time building Row House, what was one of the greatest learnings that you took away from that experience?
The napkin. One of the biggest learnings was, if you have a vision and you go out and test it, then sometimes as you go, just go back to the napkin. Like the napkin, the proverbial napkin, was actually a piece of paper in 2008. Row House was launched in like 13, 14 was when all the build out was. So it was many years later. But today, what was on the napkin is really still the thing. And like we pioneered that space. I mean, I watched Hydro develop after it. Those people came in and they spent a lot of time figuring out how we figured out how to talk to the customer. Concept 2 and all those people came around telling us that everybody had to watch what we were doing because we were doing it right. And so like we watched kind of not only how we developed our own user, but how we kind of took rowing from very niche to make it mainstream. But it was all really back to the napkin of like, who were those key user groups? And then my growth and learnings through those years, like 2014 to 2021, was really just how to like really make it clearer how to speak and speak back to all of these people that were originally on the napkin. So I think having the guiding light, the North Star, staying true to it, yet evolving, but not evolving in so many crazy directions that you don't come back to that like original idea, is one of the biggest learnings that I've had. And the napkin isn't exactly the brands, but in certain ways it did become.
And you've seen it so many times where founders get squirrel brain and let me chase this, this is trendy now, let me chase this. To your point, like sometimes giving yourself permission to just focus on what we decided years ago was the thing, focus on building the thing, and be okay saying no to something that might be interesting. As an entrepreneur brain, you're like, yeah, I could see that coming to be, but then you're all of a sudden stretched in too many places.
I think about that all the time. How do you not chase the shiny object? In the industry in general, right now, we're facing that too with this whole biohacking world, which I love it. I'm here for all of it. But what are the universal truths? They are hydration, nutrition, sleep, all of those types of things. And then you have all of these things gathering around. So what is the universal truth of like why I built this brand? Where are we trying to go? Even in our acquisition from Exponential, what was the reason that we made, to your point, that decision at that point in time? The worst decision is the one that you don't make. The best decision, wonderful partnership from there and scaling a brand. And then you learn things along the way. You see things that happen along the way. And, you know, this is the evolution of entrepreneurship and brand building and being a founder. And so that's your journey.
Coming out of Row House, which was such a success, do you as a founder feel pressure or an obligation to do your next thing just as big or bigger?
You know, it's not that I feel an obligation. It's that I know I can, and I know how much work it is. You need to go all in with the right team. You just need to really, really be ready. I found a lot of joy and satisfaction in helping other founders. When I went through these journeys, I didn't necessarily have the answers. Not to say I have all the answers now. I certainly don't. Nobody does. But I know the red flags. I know what to think about. Have lived a lot of lives in all of this, I think. You know, and so at the time, I tapped into advisors of different types, and I had always luckily been a part of innovation in different industries. And so I used different frameworks to think through what I was trying to build from other industries that I had experienced. Bringing those external industry experiences to my fitness passion is what helped me be successful. I found a lot of joy now taking those learnings into a little bit more of an expanded market industry and helping other founders move their things forward. But to your point, I think there will be a time where as a builder, I will dive back in. I just don't know when it'll come because I've gotten close and then I'm like, I don't know if I'm really ready for this right now. And so instead I've been enjoying it being a little lighter on my side and helping others, just cheerleading them on and supporting them through. And right now I'm helping on the leadership side. I'm not a recruiter or anything, but I'm helping somebody find the right candidate because you just know how important it is on the leadership of a growing brand to make sure that that person that comes in is right. So my heart is there and, you know, you see the success, you watch it build and you can do it with a couple of teams and support their growth. And that's really meaningful to me.
You kind of joked about not knowing, I don't know all the things, having one really solid brand and exit under your belt. You do know a lot of things. And then maybe more importantly, you do know basically everyone. How important is your network in what you're doing right now? How important is being a connector to you in terms of who you are now as a person and as an industry advocate?
Well, thank you. I did realize that by nature, I have always kind of aggregated things, and by skill, I've learned how to aggregate things. Row House was just an aggregation of a few different types of people. Back in New York City, tourism was aggregation of hotels and attractions and restaurant, nightlife, and all of that type of stuff, experiences, and then your customer segmenting around international tourists, domestic, local, whatever. So the whole idea for me has been, I'm seeing the industry from an aggregation standpoint. I'm really seeing what has worked, what has not worked, what's going on in boutique, what's going on in gym, what's going on in digital. There's hybrids sometimes. What are these brands and these learnings and these tools, whether they're like tech vendors that are coming in from outside the industry, trying to find their way in. So that's what my network is about. It's about, if a brand is building, there may be a really, really good solution that's not obvious to helping it fast track its growth. My network, I love watching everything that's happening. And so I'm doing it from a genuine interest in meeting people, knowing what they're up to, knowing what's keeping everybody excited. I also am helping some brands find the right operators to layer into. So I'm kind of playing on both sides, and that keeps it really, really exciting for me.
You know the latest and greatest with all the people, but you're also like kind of clued in with all the fitness industry trends. What are you watching right now? You kind of mentioned like the biohacking and like that part of the industry. What are you keeping your eye on?
It's so interesting because we are getting, with all of these labs and the function health type things and the wearable data and all of it, we're getting so much data on ourselves. The question becomes, how do you personalize in a meaningful way, but also recognize that when somebody shows up, they may look wonderful, but they're learning so much data about themselves. They have so many needs. And how much of that is your problem, right? That it's a huge question. We say like fitness is leaning into wellness and healthcare and all those types of stuff. Like, where are the lines? I love that I have all of this knowledge. It brings up a host more of needs in my day. Do I want it in a one-stop shop? Do I not want it in a one-stop shop? There's just a ton going on in that space. The women's space will always be a space, I think, that's going to get ongoing attention. And making sure that the women's space is helpful, but doesn't actually become exclusive by becoming inclusive is a whole other space, because it's just a population, right? We used to really think about the fitness population as optics. We grew to mental health, physical health, but who are the populations? We used to call special populations, like pregnant women, people with disabilities were all special populations. Like, that was a thing. And now special populations, I think, is becoming the actual community, which is a wonderful thing. But then it goes back to, how do you address all of that within what you're doing? It's a very broad thought and idea, but I think that's where we're going long term, for 5 years, 10 years. But it's also really where we need to go if we want to really help empower people to live better fitness, health type initiatives or options.
Well, and then for consumers, we still have to make it digestible. I always think about marketing, even in the boutique fitness space, of like a lot of how we try to attract people is like we throw them into the deep end of what we do. And we're just like, you're in, go swim. Instead of like most people, especially those who don't work out a lot, like we kind of need to create a shallow end for them to like dip their toe in. The water's fine, and like get into the lifestyle slowly. And I feel the same about all of the data where if you dive into the deep end, what do you focus on that's going to move the needle? And are we overcomplicating, or are we even like hiding potentially the main issue because it's 20 statistics deep in your export when it maybe could be really simplified down? And so I think you're right, where the data side, the wearable side, the technology side is so critical. But then as marketers, and you have like a marketer heart, we need to enter into that conversation to say, hey, data nerds, love you, but here's how we need to present this to people. And it can't be all of it in a useless set of numbers. We have to make it applicable. We have to make it safe. We have to make it like appealing, and we can't make it scary. Like, we as an industry have made things scary for so many years. And now here we are with data going in the same direction. We need to step up and be like, let's make this appealing for people. We need to talk this through and like come up with a plan.
I mean, I could talk about this part, yes, all day. And I've said before, like, what are the buckets, right? And you're saying simplify it down. Yeah. So the personalization is beautiful, right? And that goes back almost to the Me We Go. I need to see my personalization, but how I show up in your brand is in a bigger bucket, use case, avatar, like however you want to think of me, but that's different. And so it's interesting even because Jessica, you're involved in massage now, right? So for Squeeze, you could have a kick-ass brand's promise that's going to live for 10 years that we're going to make you feel better. And what does feel better mean? What does feel better mean to you? To me, feel better to me means that today that I'm not going to have my shoulders up, like they're going to be down. Feel better to somebody else means that they just got out of the house. Feel better to somebody else means that they're going through a detox and you're working through their detox. Theoretically, what you're saying is all accurate. That's what you're distilling down. The message is we're going to make you feel better, however you show that up in your brands. But then there is a particular user's need that will change over the course of time that still falls into that overarching message, right? That you're somehow or another tracking and connecting and recognizing and following the trends, because something that I'm noticing that I really think is going to happen is there's going to be a lot of detoxing in this world. And massage is wonderful for detoxing. So the timelessness and the detoxing is because people are realizing all the shit in their blood, myself included. That's like how the trends, you'll still be timeless if you figure out from a brand standpoint how to communicate to that person then in general. But are you really supposed to talk to them about their specific detox needs? The massage is just going to be known as something that's helpful in detoxing. So everybody needs to know that, for example. So I got weedy, but I think it's a great point that you brought up.
No,
on this.
and I think it has to be a handshake between technology and having a menu of clickable options, but then in the massage world, having therapists who have guardrails to play within to say, I know your need is this, and so I'm going to like execute the massage in this kind of manner and use a tactic that they might not have used on their prior member. And so in the fitness world, it really is having the onus be on the personal trainers to be a guide through all of the technology, all of the data. You kind of need the expert in the room, and the expert in the room can't be the wearable. Like the expert in the room needs to be looking at the information on the wearable, knows you, sees how you're moving, sees how you're feeling. Like, so it needs to be this merge of technology, but like applied through humans. I think that's both like the most exciting thing that's happening in fitness right now, but also the most challenging because the two worlds are at the opposite end of the spectrum of what we do in health and wellness.
And it's also the instant gratification versus from AI and from tech and from a digital health coach or a digital doctor, like telemed, versus the in-person, real, compassionate side of getting to know somebody and developing a relationship, even if you have to wait for the instant gratification, just seeing that value there. So yeah, it's all everywhere right now, isn't it?
It is. I want to talk a little bit about you maybe as a founder or as an entrepreneur or even where you currently are. What are you most proud of with everything that you've built so far? What are you most proud of?
I am very proud, you were saying this, of seeing your brand in the wild. That's not only the brands I've created, but any of the brands I've been involved in. Just seeing your brands in the wild. And this is why I keep talking about these brands. I should start talking about the others too. But it becomes a lot to talk about. It's like you have a lot of babies, but that's what I'm so proud of. Like when people get dressed in the morning, they pull out like a Row House shirt. I pulled one out the other day. I hadn't been wearing it much and somebody stopped me. Oh, do you go to Row House? Oh, you're the founder? Like, oh my God, you know, you've changed my life and da, da, da. So the fact that you've made your way into somebody's closet, I mean, it's amazing. I remember in one of the very, very early days of building Row House, there was a weekend where somebody showed up in a SoulCycle sweatshirt and somebody showed up in a Flywheel sweatshirt. And the whole thing is rowing the new spinning. We had tons of press around that. It was a picture of me, my Row House gear between, it was like on Insta, it's probably on the old Instagrams. You know, you're like, okay, well, I made it if like the two top brands are showing up in my studio here too, right? So, and people are like, oh, it's not gonna be long before I swap out all that gear for this gear, which happens and doesn't happen, different use groups. But I think that's special because at the heart of it, you've affected real human beings and you've changed lives and manipulated their outfits, at least.
For sure. I have seen row house gear in the wild. I saw a pair of leggings recently at DFW Airport. So next time I will ask them to take a photo so I could send you proof. Don't be alarmed when you see like me with a random stranger in in their row house gear. If you weren't working, consulting, investing, advising in the fitness space, what would you be doing?
When I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. So I could be being a teacher. I would not be sitting on the beach. I mean, everybody knows that I would be doing something. I would just be connecting people. I love hosting a good party, and I love that energy that it brings. I love being with my family too, and I love my downtime. Don't get me wrong, I'm not always energized by any means. Bringing people together and understanding, Jessica, you live in Texas. This person lives in Texas. You wore that cute athleisure outfit and you're trending to athleisure. And by the way, so am I. Here's a picture of this, which I've thought about a lot since I last saw you at Beyond's Active. And I am doing that. That's 2026. It's cowboy boots, athleisure bodysuit, and a blazer all the way.
Bring it. You are always welcome here in Texas. And whenever I'm out there in California, I will bring my boots out as well as the bike shorts and the blazer. What are you working on? What help do you need? Is there anything that you want to throw out into the universe of like people who should be connecting with you immediately?
I've been building a kind of Citizens. It was my original brand name since way back when. So I needed a new identity after Row House. So Citizens.com, I've kind of created a growth engine where it's this model for founders who want help building small, medium, or large. This doesn't have to be anything crazy. We either call it like being involved in the co-pilot or being involved in the growth engine. And the goal is just really to understand in the right size of an engagement, how I can come in to support you and grow you. And I'm not only doing that for founders and operators of fitness, well-being, business, wellness type businesses, but I'm also doing it for some of the big brands that are trying to come into the space, like we discussed, don't really know how to enter the fitness market. And they're trying to figure out like where is the right place to go. Should they go through studios and distribute their product or their tech vendor or whatever through there? They have equipment. Should they do it through the gyms? All that. So I'm trying to do some strategy for those guys as well. Citizens.com, if anybody needs help scaling, growing, partnering, building foundation, finding the product market fit, this is what I love and breathe. So hopefully I could be of help, but feel free to reach out.
I will link all of your contact information and your website in the show notes just so you guys can find it easily. We covered a lot of different topics today. Is there anything that's top of mind with you that we did not cover? And or is there an event coming up that you're going to be at that you want to give a shout out to? Or are you going to host a party for me sometime soon in California?
I mean, always. There's always a party for you. Listen, we're always looking at the 2026 calendar in 2025, right? There's a lot of people that aren't respecting the prep yet, right? We need to pre-plan, but we also need some space to show up at things we don't know about. So my whole thing is let me know, everybody out there, where you're going to be, what you're doing. I'm planning it now. Let's all make the most of all of these experiences. And there's not really anything else, Jessica, other than to like just celebrate all of the people that are really building this industry, you in all of your roles, and just like the people who have that pitched in with that passionate heart to get things going, who've recognized we need to figure it out along the way because it wasn't built for us in the way it was recently. The people that are coming into the industry from other occupations, like, we see that a lot in franchising, right? People coming from legal, people coming from accounting. We have people coming from medicine now trying to figure this all out into the fitness world. So just want to celebrate like people who are really trying to make everyone out there be more fit. That's kind of the nature of my brand's Fit Citizens. Just what I've always kind of cared about is us living, what is that, the Huberman talk of the marginal decade? Living well, living gracefully, living longer, feeling better, feeling healthier. That's all.
That's all. That's a pretty big thought, and it's an important one going into, we're recording this the week before Thanksgiving. So I'm definitely thankful for you, and I appreciate that sentiment of like, I think in the industry we need to all kind of look around and give ourselves a collective pat on the back for the work that's being done and celebrate each other. We have a lot to do still, but we're heading into a really good season for all of us. Thank you so much for sharing that idea, and thank you for sharing everything that you did with us here today on the Society Pod.
It was great. That was super fun. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Society Pod.